Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Challenge Grants Program Information webinar. We will be getting started shortly. We actually have, I'd like to share that we actually have close to 180 participants registered today. So we are very excited to have all of you joining us. So we'll go ahead and start promptly at 1:05. So if you can just be patient and just stay on the line while everyone else logs in, that would be great. Thank you. Again, welcome to the Challenge Grants Program Information webinar. We are just waiting a few minutes longer to allow everyone some time to log in. We will be starting shortly in a few minutes. Okay, if you're just joining us now, this is the Challenge Grants Program Information webinar. We'll go ahead and start shortly. I think we're going to give participants just a few more minutes to finish logging in. Okay, to all of you just joining us now, welcome to the Challenge Grants Information webinar. We will go ahead and get started in 1 minute. Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I believe we're ready. We'll go ahead and have a few other people join us as we get started. And I just do want to share that today's webinar is being supported by a wonderful team of 3. And so let me go ahead and just introduce who we have here with us today. My name is Flor Perez, and I am the program manager for the Challenge Grants program. Also on our team is Fatima Kapinpin, who today will be providing the tech support. Her primary role for the project is to provide support to potential applicants and grantees, in addition to coordinating the technical assistance opportunities. And also here in the room today, we have Deborah Coleman, our director here at Families and Schools for Early Education and Family Literacy, and she is overseeing the overall grants administration project with First 5 LA. And just so you know, both Deborah and Fatima will be fielding your questions throughout the webinar today, and shortly Fatima will actually talk more about how to pose a question and when you can actually pose your questions. Okay. And lastly, I do want to also acknowledge that we have all of you on the webinar today representing a number of nonprofits throughout LA County. It is quite an impressive list, and we are just delighted to see such a great diversity of organizations supporting children in the prenatal stage through age 5. And I know that I've gone through the list, and I know I see a lot of familiar names, so I do look forward to working with you. Okay, so let's walk through the agenda. As always, it's very full. And I also, so we just finished going through some brief introductions. I also want to make time to talk a little bit about the partnership between First 5 LA and Families and Schools, and then we'll go ahead and get started in talking about the overall Challenge Grants program, in addition to the eligibility requirements. Do note that after the eligibility requirements, we will go ahead and take a moment to respond to questions, and then we'll go ahead and continue to talk about the selection process and review criteria, as well as the actual how to apply, in addition to kind of share some important dates that you may want to mark on your calendars. And again, we will make time at the end of the presentation to take your questions if we did not address them earlier. Okay, so now before we get into the meat of what the Challenge Grants program is, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Fatima so she can kind of walk you through to some GoToWebinar basics. So please hold on one moment.
Hi everyone, thanks Flor. As she mentioned, I just really quickly want to highlight some GoToWebinar features that you have on your screen. Right now, you should be able to see your control panel. The smaller box on the left is called the Grab tab. In the Grab tab, there are 4 icons, but for the purposes of our webinar today, we'll only be highlighting 2 of those. So the first one is an arrow icon that's pointing to the left or right. This will enable you to open or close the control panel. The second icon is just a little screen, which allows you to toggle between a full screen mode or a window mode. Okay, so the larger pane in the control panel is actually for audio. At this point, you should have chosen one of the 2 options to hear the audio. So some of you are listening to us from your computer speakers, or you are listening through your telephone. Now, if for any reason you need to switch over to the telephone, feel free to do so. Once you do that, you will see the number to call and the pin to punch in. As a best practice, make sure to maximize the volume in order to hear high quality sound. And right now, by default, all participants are muted. The last pane on your control panel is the questions log. So I'm going to go through that right now. So how to post a question. As Flora mentioned, questions may only be submitted online. You may type in your question in the control panel and click the send to submit. Feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation. I see that there's already been some questions that have been submitted. They will be addressed after the eligibility section as well as the very end of the presentation. Okay, so since time is restricted, unfortunately not all questions may be answered. However, they will be added to our frequently asked questions document, which will be available on our website on July 27th. And as always, we welcome additional questions after the webinar. Please direct those questions to Floor, and I've included her contact information on the PowerPoint. And I think that's it for my part. I'll hand it over to Floor again. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Fatima. And again, I just really want to stress that you are encouraged to give me a call. I know some of you have already done so and sent me emails, and we definitely do and welcome your inquiries. So again, talking about the Challenge Grants program is made possible through a partnership with First 5 LA and Families in Schools. And as many of you may already know, First 5 LA was established by California voters through Proposition 10, also known as the Tobacco Tax Initiative. And as a child advocacy organization, First 5 LA aims to improve the lives of children in the prenatal stage through age 5 and their families throughout LA County. All of First 5 LA's investments are geared towards ensuring that all young children are born healthy, are safe from abuse and neglect, are ready for kindergarten, and maintain a healthy weight. Families in Schools, our mission is to involve parents and communities in their children's education to achieve lifelong success, and we work towards that goal, towards our mission, by focusing on 3 key areas, which are curriculum and professional development, advocacy and community engagement, as well as nonprofit sustainability. Our organization has a strong history as an intermediary to nonprofits throughout the state, meaning we serve as a liaison between funders and community organizations. This experience has made us an ideal strategic partner for this particular collaboration. One of the unique elements about the Challenge Grant program is the partnership between First 5 LA and Families in Schools to develop 2 competitive grant programs that leverage fiscal resources in support of organizations here in LA County that again serve children in the prenatal stage through age 5 and their families. I do want to stress that this is the first time that First 5 LA has partnered in this capacity with a nonprofit, and we strongly feel that this partnership is the cornerstone of how we have approached our work with the program in addition to the Challenge Grants program, and how we envision continuing to partner with you along this journey, specifically with the selected grantees. Now, before we actually get into the actual Challenge Grant program's overview, I do want to make sure that we're all on the same page and kind of address what exactly is a Challenge Grant. Now, a Challenge Grant is a unique fundraising tool to leverage resources, and the way I've often described this is that it's almost a call to action. It's a promise to if you raise the funds, we will commit to meet. If you raise new funds, we will then go ahead and match those funds. So, for example, as illustrated in that slide, in essence, if you raise $1,000, we would then match you those $1,000. And I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and get into specifics about what this looks like for the Challenge Grants program. And so what does this mean for the actual Challenge Grants program overview? Again, this is really an opportunity to broaden and also deepen the funding base of local nonprofits here in LA County. And the way we see it is that this is to really strengthen the sustainability of organizations. I think one of the most unique aspects of this actual funding is the flexibility with what these funds can be used for. So again, I think the measure that we're using is these funds should go to enhance, expand, or sustain the general operations for an early childhood strategy, again, within LA County. We do have up to 11 grant awards available, and we have there is a maximum award amount per organization of $100,000. Now, the funds are awarded at a 1-to-1 match rate over 24 months as new matching funds are secured. And I'll actually go ahead and talk a little bit about what we mean by new matching funds. And I do want to add that there will be technical assistance tailored around fundraising, development for select grantees. Now, also one of the things that I do want to address is that the Challenge Grants Program is a demonstration project, and we anticipate that this will actually inform future grant-making initiatives. Also, in regards to the organizations that we are looking to fund, we are looking to fund a diversity of organizations with small, medium, and large organizations. Now, in regards to the $100,000, the maximum $100,000 award, we do encourage organizations. They don't have as an organization, you don't have to request the full $100,000. You will have an opportunity to assess and determine what amount is realistic for your organization. Okay, and now, so what do we mean by new matching funds? Now, when we're talking about new matching funds, the new matching funds are funds that have either been awarded or secured after, if you're selected as a grantee, these are funds that were awarded or secured after the anticipated grant start date of January 1st, 2013. This does mean that if there is an award letter, that should be dated on or after January 1st, 2013. For instance, if you submit an application, if you're selected as a grantee and you submit an application, a grant for your organization in October, but you don't find, and you receive and you are awarded this grant after January 1st, then that would actually count as new matching funds as long as it meets the rest of the eligibility criteria. And again, part of the matching funds is that you also have an opportunity you have the flexibility to maximize this grant award using multiple fundraising strategies. So you don't have to actually rely on perhaps maybe one donor or perhaps one grant. But in actuality, you can actually use many or all different strategies. So you can maybe work with your building your individual donor base. You can look for a major gift from a donor that you already have an existing partnership, or perhaps one that you want to develop. Grants, as in from foundations, government at the city, county, state, or federal, in addition to special events or fundraisers. So there's definitely multiple opportunities. And again, this is over 24 months. So you'll have that opportunity to draw down those funds as you raise them. Okay, and then just to give you a few other examples, so if you have like a multi-year grant, if the multi-year grant is awarded prior to the January 1st date, that actually, if the funds have not been secured or awarded, then they would be able to count as new matching funds. But if they have already been awarded as part of this multi-year project, you would not be able to count them as a matching fund. Okay. Now there are some new matching funds that will be ineligible. And those included are in-kind donations, any direct grants or re-granted funds from First 5 LA and or Families in Schools. So for instance, if you receive a grant from First 5 LA and you're also selected as a grantee, those funds, even if it was after the January 1st contract start date, would not count as new matching funds. In addition, contracts or any revenue generated from earned income strategies would also not qualify as new matching funds. So the question is, once you do raise these new matching funds, how do you draw down? So again, you will actually have an opportunity to draw down funds on a quarterly basis. And again, it'll be on a one-to-one match rate, and it'll be over a 24-month period up to the maximum amount of $100,000. Now again, if you choose to put in your application that perhaps you just want $50,000 or $60,000, then that would be the maximum award amount that we would match you. Okay. Now there are some stipulations on kind of what the awarded funds can be used for, and I briefly talked about it at the beginning. Again, these funds are for flexible operation support, so you can use them for administration costs, program support, or even capacity building or capacity building. So for instance, if Families in Schools as an organization was perhaps submitting a proposal for this, one of the things maybe administratively we might look into using the funds to hire a development director to build our individual donor base. Programmatically, we might decide to enhance, one of our family literacy curricula, such as reading roads, to target perhaps a new population. Or we might also, from the kind of staff development, capacity building perspective, we might decide to send some of our key staff to fundraising or development trainings, or possibly hire a consultant to coach the executive leadership on strategic planning. So it really allows a lot of flexibility. And so we really do want to encourage each organization that is planning to apply that you assess kind of what makes the most sense for your actual organization. We know that it is very rare for this type of funding to be made available, and so we really do hope that that this opportunity is really used in a way to support maybe initiative or costs that are not traditionally funded. But again, there are some things that these funds cannot be used for, and that includes for political campaigns, lobbying, regranting purposes, as well as capital campaigns. Now, I do want to say that you can use this for capital improvements, just not for capital campaigns. So now, again, so I'm going to move into the eligibility of the Challenge Grants program. And after I've gone through the eligibility, we'll go ahead and pause for a moment to address some of the questions. So as part of the eligibility, applicants must be a nonprofit organization that has evidence of their 501c3 tax-exempt status, or have a nonprofit fiscal sponsor. In addition, the applicant must have a physical office within LA County. Now, I do want to add that this that these eligibility requirements, specifically to the 501c3, means that schools and school districts, perhaps with the exception of charter schools that have a 501c3 status, are not eligible for this funding opportunity. But again, I do want to again stress that this is this initiative potentially will inform future grant-making initiatives, and perhaps in the future the eligibility might change for another grant program. So to continue, again, the applicant must also demonstrate a strategic priority to serve LA County children in the prenatal stage through age 5 and their families using the first 5 LA's theory of change prioritized pathway. And I'll be walking through the actual pathway as well as the example that we developed specifically for the Challenge Grants program. And in addition, the applicants must be in good standing with both First 5 LA and families in schools. And the question always is, what do we mean by good standing? And the way we describe this is that the applicant has fulfilled all reporting requirements in a timely fashion, is in compliance with any existing grant or contract requirements, and has resolved any outstanding debts. And again, all past, current First 5 LA grantees and potential grantees. So if you applied for a recent grant, either through Families in Schools or First 5 LA, you are still eligible to apply. Okay. Let me go ahead and walk through the prioritized pathway, and then we'll go ahead and transition over to responding to your questions. So the prioritized pathway is First 5 LA's theory of change. And the way I usually like to start from kind of the bottom down, which is the foundational supports, which is the larger community, the systems change that we're striving to see. And so as you can see, we have the foundational supports, which include communities are supportive of families, policies that impact the prenatal to age 5 population, and that the multiple systems that benefit this population are actually integrated and accessible, children have access to health insurance, and that we have a high-quality workforce that supports early childhood development. And so kind of moving up, we have the preconditions. So as you're thinking about your organization, you want to identify kind of on this scheme how your organization aligns with the theory of change prioritized pathway for First 5 LA. So what are some of the preconditions that you align with? And so you have several choices in the green boxes. And once you've done that, then you want to go ahead and also select one of the intermediate outcomes. There are only 4 measures, which are all in purple. But most importantly, it's actually the goal that your organization is actually addresses or serves. So children are born healthy, children are safe from abuse and neglect, children are ready for kindergarten, children maintain a healthy weight. Now I realize that many organizations actually have worked towards all of these goals. For the purpose of your application, I recommend that you select one goal, or select at least one goal, but if you select at least one goal and actually detail how exactly your organization supports that. Okay, so we did do a sample of, as an organization, that how families in schools, if we were to apply for this, how we would determine our own alignment with First 5 LA's prioritized pathway. So families in schools, we have a strategic priority around children in the prenatal stage through age 5. We demonstrate this through our portfolio of early education and family literacy programs. And the priority goal that we selected is actually that children are ready for kindergarten. And we demonstrate that through the programs and curricula that we have that support families in developing their child's early education skills, and also by providing technical assistance to nonprofits. Again, by developing children's early literacy skills, they're more likely to read at grade level, which is the measure. The intermediate outcome that we selected is parents, caregivers support their child's learning. And so again, our early education programs, through our early education programs, parents are provided with the tools to support their child's early learning. And they get to do this through literacy activities at home and also really strengthen the interaction that a parent has with their child's teacher. For the precondition, we selected parents and caregivers have knowledge of child development and training. And again, we provide parents with tools to support their child's learning, but we also focus on skill and competence building so that parents can actually advocate for their child's early learning. And then the foundational support that we work towards is that communities are supportive of families. We train agency and school staff on our early education curriculum, and they then offer it to families, and thereby we build the community's capacity to support parents in their child's early literacy skills. So when you actually develop your response to this particular narrative question, which we'll transition into in just a bit, you want to make sure you don't have to, this is just a sample to kind of help you determine how you align. You don't necessarily have to address it in the exact same way. It's just a sample to help you determine how you align, or if you align, with First Live LA's strategic priority. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and stop talking for a little bit. Well, actually, I'm not going to stop talking for a little bit. I'm going to stop the presentation for a little bit so I can address your questions. I'm still going to continue talking, so bear with me. So here's some of the questions that I received. Now, if you're an organization that serves perhaps maybe children birth to 3, is it necessary for you to also serve children up to age 5? No. So again, our hope is that organizations that serve children in the prenatal stage through age 5. So you don't necessarily have to serve children all the way through age 5. And with that, I also want to add, if you serve other populations, that's also, it's quite all, that's perfectly fine. Again, in your application, you just want to demonstrate that children in the prenatal stage through age 5 are a strategic priority for your organization. Now, again, some of you are familiar already with the previous competitive grant that we released, and if you apply for the Social Enterprise Grants Program, you are eligible for the Challenge Grants Program. And now, I also have, I believe I addressed it earlier, but just to reiterate, school districts are not eligible for this funding opportunity. Okay, and I did have a question if not having discretionary funding means you're not in good standing. No, again, this is really about whether you have resolved if your current grants, past grants are in compliance, have been, any outstanding debts have been resolved. Now, as we get into the narrative questions, you will note that we do ask, discretionary funding is not something that we are particularly inquiring about, but we will ask about your financial standing. And there are additional supporting documents which I'll review after these questions. So we do want to know about your financial standing, but not necessarily in regards to your discretionary funds. Okay, so again, so when we're talking about what is earned income, and this is some of you may have fee-for-service programs, meaning they generate income, unrestricted income, perhaps through contracts with school districts, and these funds then would not be eligible for the new matching funds. So again, with that, I also answer the question that earned income cannot be used as matching. There any? Okay. Okay. So one of the questions was, if we have a fiscal sponsor, is there a limit on the percentage the sponsor can charge the agency? There is no limit, but that is something I think that that's a discussion that you would have with your fiscal sponsor. Okay. Okay, so I also, now in regards to eligibility of matching funds, of eligible matching funds, how soon can agencies draw down funds after submitting documentation? So the process for that actually entails, like I mentioned earlier, you'll have on a quarterly basis an opportunity to draw down funds. After we will ask for a report, and then we'll also identify proof of documentation, and once that documentation is submitted, you will receive a payment within 30 days. Is there a cap on how much we can draw down at one time? As long as it does not exceed the maximum grant award, there is no cap. I do have a question about whether matching funds need to be restricted to early childhood. No, not necessarily. Again, there is a lot of flexibility with this funding in regards to your general operations. So they should definitely support your early childhood strategy, but you do have the flexibility in your proposal to describe how those funds, if they are being used for general support, how they will support your early childhood strategy, but they're not necessarily restricted to early childhood. Okay. Government contracts cannot be used as matching. However, if you have a government grant, it can be used as matching. And again, once you're selected as a grantee, we will help you walk through and determine what funds are actually eligible, if there is any discrepancy. Can a multi-year grant that is approved be used? Again, so I know I mentioned briefly, it depends. So if you received a multi-year grant previous to the award for the Challenge Grants program, you cannot use that as a matching funds. There is an exception if, for instance, you have not received the funds for that upcoming year and they're awarded separately, then you could count them as a matching fund. But like I said, if they've been awarded, and I think a good litmus to use would be to use the award letter. So if the original award letter states the complete amount of the grant, then you cannot use that as eligible matching funds. Yes. So, sorry, I get so excited that I say yes to the answer without sharing the question. So the question is, can an annual funder also be a new funder? This is, again, we really want to encourage you to use this as an opportunity to leverage your former relationships as well as existing relationships with donors. So if you have a funder that annually gives you or that donates an amount, then this would be a great opportunity for you to leverage that relationship and encourage them to perhaps give you to donate after the January 1st date, in that they would actually be doubling their donation in essence. And then the other question, a follow-up question, is actually, can individual donations be used as matching? Yes, there is certain documentation that we will need to see, but it most definitely can be used as matching. And again, the parameters are that this funding is received on or after the January 1st, 2013 anticipated start date of the grants. All right, so I have some questions about how the funds can be used. So can the money be used for expansion? Because I'm not too clear if this is more like programmatic expansion, or perhaps even location. I think as long as it is to serve children in the prenatal stage through age 5 in LA County, and it's to expand programming, most certainly it can be used. If it's also to perhaps make, like I said, capital improvements, it most definitely can be used. Can the award be used to replenish our reserves? If you can, again, this is back to your sustainability. So if you can, in your application, explain how this will actually contribute or strengthen your sustainability, then that's what we actually need to see in your application. So like I said, because there's a lot of flexibility in how you can use these funds, overall, I definitely want to reiterate the fact that in your application, what you want to stress is how these funds will ultimately strengthen the sustainability of your organization and thereby actually support children in LA County from in the prenatal stage through age 5. So if you can make those two, if you can really make a clear, robust statement about how this really will meet those two goals, that'll make your application much stronger. Can funds be used for existing staff? Again, this goes to the exact same question that I just stated. So as long as you can demonstrate that this can support or actually strengthen the sustainability of your organization. I do have a question here about what can the funding be spent on, and like I said, this is there is a lot of flexibility, and I gave a couple of examples at the beginning of kind of if families and schools as an organization was applying to it, how we could potentially use it. The best advice that I can give is that as an organization, you have to assess kind of what would most strengthen the sustainability of your organization and then decide what would work best. It might be programmatic. It might be focusing on administration costs. It might be doing both. And so really this is, you have a lot of flexibility in this. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take a few, I'm going to go ahead and get back onto the narrative questions. And again, go ahead and continue putting your questions. I see that they're coming through, and I'll go ahead and address them again towards the end. Okay. So moving on to the narrative questions. Before I actually get into questions, I do want to share a couple of best practices and kind of developing your or completing your application. And that is, I do recommend that you go ahead and print and thoroughly read the RFP before starting the actual online application. I think the other best practice that I've been recommending, especially to those of you that have already called me, is to read through the FAQ document. We actually have one available already on our website, and we will be updating it, as Fatima shared, on July 27th with questions that are posed today, as well as from our community information session. And I just really want to encourage you to read the FAQs, each of the questions, whether you're as a whole document, because I think it'll really strengthen your understanding of the RFP. Again, another best practice is to really, some of you are very familiar with this, but we do encourage you to start your narrative from a Word document and then cut and paste your responses to the online application. I also want to mention, while there is no set page limit, each question does have a maximum character count, which is included in the RFP, and it'll also count the number of characters entered for each response for you, so you'll know how much more space you have as you complete your responses. So again, the proposal narrative questions are divided up into three main components, and those are organizational profile, funding request, and development and fundraising. Organizational profile, again, here we're looking for you to describe your agency's history and mission. And we also, as a second part, we also want to know how your agency serves Los Angeles County children in the prenatal stage through age 5 and their families. So again, while many of you have organizations that focus beyond those ages, we really want to know kind of if you have what kind of services you currently provide, what you've provided, how children in the prenatal stage through age 5 are a strategic priority. And again, we really do want to emphasize Los Angeles County. Then, as I mentioned before, you are going to, the third question relates back to the prioritized pathway. And this is where you're going to want to look at the pathway as well as the example to address this particular question about how your organization aligns with the prioritized pathway and supports at least one of the priority goals. And again, you only have to select one actual goal. Now moving along to the funding request. So we actually only have 2 questions on the funding request section. I do want to mention that there is no budget requirement for this application. Now we do want, and this is something that I was talking about earlier, which we do want you to discuss how the funds will be allocated to help enhance, expand, or sustain your organization's efforts to support young children and their families in LA County. So again, this goes back to how the funds will be used. And so really addressing, just ensuring that there is a connection, a strong connection to how these funds will support children in the prenatal stage to age 5. And again, the second question, those 2 objectives that I mentioned earlier, is again, how will the requested funds strengthen the sustainability of your organization? Okay. All right. Now, the third component is the development and fundraising. And this is the one where we actually ask the most. We have a total of 6 questions in this section. And so for the first part, we want to know how your organization anticipates raising the new matching funds to maximize the full grant award. And again, so this is not, I really want to stress that this funding opportunity is really for you to engage in multiple fundraising strategies. You can limit yourself to one. Perhaps you get one donor that is able to give you $100,000. That would be fantastic. But I think one of the things that we really want to encourage is perhaps maybe using multiple sources where you don't have to rely on one specific type of funding. So it could be individual donors, it could be a government grant, a foundation grant, your individual donor base, or perhaps a major gift, right? And so we want to know what strategies you'll be using to actually raise those new matching funds. Again, we also want to see what your work plan looks over the 24 months, because you do have a 2-year span to maximize your grant award. We want to know kind of what are some of the activities that you're planning, what are your fundraising goals, and then who will be responsible, and what your time frame looks like over the 2 years. There is a fundraising work plan template provided for this particular response. So please be sure to use the template that we provide. Now, again, the third piece of this is to describe the key staff involved in the fundraising strategy. You want to highlight their expertise, perhaps what kind of funds they've able to raise in the past, and what their actual roles will be in supporting your fundraising work plan. Okay. Moving on to the second component, we do want to know kind of what the role of your board of directors currently is in the fundraising efforts. So highlight if there are any kind of board giving policies or maybe expected foundation calls that board members do in addition to fundraisers. We just want to get a clear sense of what role your board of directors plays in the fundraising of your organization. And then again, we also want to get a good sense of the diversity of your funding sources. So we ask that you do describe kind of how funds currently are raised. So in regards to like foundation and corporate grants, and you can split it. Maybe you want to do maybe as your organization you do foundation grants separate from corporate grants. But we want to get a good understanding of your current funding sources. So contracts, major gifts, individual donors, etc. Whatever else falls within your funding sources. And last but not least, we also want you to pinpoint any additional training and technical assistance you would need to leverage this funding, the requested funding. So some of you may have your fundraising capacity. You feel pretty confident in maybe you feel very confident with your donors, but perhaps you want to do more along the lines of grant writing, or perhaps vice versa, or so just really kind of assess what technical assistance you will need to really maximize the grant award. And this will really help us determine and assess what kind of technical coaching and technical assistance we provide to grantees throughout the tenure of the grant. Okay, and I mentioned these that there are certain supporting documents. Here, what I actually recommend as part of the RFP, and in order to ensure that you are eligible is that you ensure that you actually have access to all these documents as listed as part of your application. And this includes a copy of your 501c3 tax exempt status or that of your fiscal sponsors, your current list of board of directors. Now for the third bullet, we actually do have a template. We are asking for the 5 largest awards secured over the last 3 years. And we would want to see the funder, the amount awarded, and we're also asking for all current grants and any pending grant applications supporting your organization's early childhood strategy. And again, like I said, there is a template for that already developed, and so we do ask that you use that template in providing this particular document or this response. Again, we also need your copy of your current organizational budget, your most recent 990 form, in your most recent audit or your most recent unaudited financial report. And if you choose to submit your unaudited financial report, then that also needs to be accompanied with your most recent income statement and balance sheet. And then lastly, we also need the resumes of the key project staff. Okay, so moving right along. So once you submit your application on August 31st, or by August 31st, by 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, families and schools will then go ahead and review the applications to ensure eligibility is met as well as completion. And then we will go ahead and the proposals will then move forward to a peer review committee, which will evaluate the proposals and score the proposals. After that, interviews will then be conducted with the highest ranking applications. Again, we have up to 11 grant awards available. And then after the interviews, we will actually go ahead and make our final grant decisions based on the proposal evaluations as well as the reviews and scores and the interviews that we conducted in partnership with First 5LA. Okay. So now, hopefully the next burning question is, how do you apply? And that would be online. All applications will be submitted online. If you actually submitted or created a username for the Social Enterprise Grants Program, you will not need to create a new user account. Just go ahead and use your existing username and account, and you'll go ahead and have access to the online application through there. If you have not, just go ahead and click on the link and you can go ahead and create a user account. And again, you don't have to complete your application all at once. You can modify and submit your application at any time before the deadline. Okay, and then just the next slide is actually just a picture for those of you that have not actually gone ahead and created a username already. This is actually the screenshot of what you will expect to find. So you would just go ahead and log on or create a new account, whichever, so you could log on. And once a readable version of the RFP can be downloaded online by logging onto this onto the online application, or you can also access it via the familiesinschools.org website. Again, the application does have the ability for you to not for you, but it will actually count the words or the characters for you. Okay. And last but not least, just a couple of important dates for you to keep in mind. I think the most important date is the deadline, which is August 31st, 2012 at 5 p.m. And then just to know that interviews are anticipated to be held throughout the month of September. And then internally, we'll be doing a final proposal review during the month of October with notifications out to applicants at the end of November. And again, the anticipated executed grant agreement start date is January 1st, 2013. Okay, so with this, yeah, and again, and as you'll note, we actually have a community information session on July 24th. We will be going through the exact same information that I've gone through today. So there is no real need, if you are participating today on the webinar, there is no real need for you to attend the community information session. And like I said, all the questions that are posed during this webinar as well as during the community information session will go ahead and be compiled and added to our FAQ document, and that'll be posted on July 27th, so you'll have access to them online. Yeah. In addition to this particular webinar, this webinar is actually being recorded, so you will actually have access to this also via our website if you choose to come back to it. And again, you're more than welcome to call me or email me with questions. But for now, I will actually go ahead and transition to the questions that you have now. Okay, and these are questions, I'm going to go ahead and address the questions about the narrative. Can key staff include board and volunteers? So for this, we're saying that only paid staff should be included as the key project staff. And then the second question is that for the 5 largest awards, is this all okay? Can grants and or contracts also be included? That is, you can include both. Again, and I do want to share, this is really just to give us kind of an insight of kind of the financial resources that your organization has leveraged over the past 3 years. So contracts as well as grants should definitely be included as part of that. But like I said, we only want the 5. And then can key staff also be a consultant? Yes, my assumption is that there are paid staff, so they would qualify to be included in that as well. Okay, I have questions coming through. How detailed should the organizational budget be? So this should actually already be something that either your finance department or your finance director, whoever does the finances for your organization, it should already be an existing. So I don't think it's the level of detail. I think it is the current organizational budget that we're looking for. And typically that includes expenses and revenues and expenses. And it should be balanced. The question is, and this is a really good question, is there a scoring rubric? There is, and you can actually find it online when you go to our familiesinschools.org website and click on grant opportunities, and you'll go to the challenge grants. Look under the section that says grant proposal tools and documents, and you'll see the actual grant proposal rubric. And that'll be the actual measures, and you can see the points that will be allocated for each of the questions. And I definitely would recommend that as a best practice, that you take the opportunity to look through that rubric and assess kind of the maximum points awarded for each question. Will a priority be given to agencies in Best Start communities? No, we will not be giving priority points or for Best Start communities. This is really, I think I mentioned earlier, we are actually hoping to fund a diversity of organizations with small, medium, and large budgets throughout all of LA County. A total of, up to 11 organizations. Okay, so what types of people on the peer review? So the peer review committee will be, because we are focusing a lot on the development and fundraising, the individuals on the peer committee will have expertise and experience in the area of development and fundraising as it relates to the nonprofit sector. Okay, so I have two questions in regards to matching funds, and one is, can Best Start funds be used as matching funds? And the answer to that is no. Again, as a reminder, any funds from First 5 LA cannot be used as new matching funds. And the other question is, can new funds be from various funders? Most definitely. So again, you do not have to rely on perhaps one or two funding sources. You can have several in order for you to maximize award. Ultimately, we want every selected grantee to maximize the grant award that they've been given. Okay. Okay, and again, just want to add, in regards to the awards, the maximum award request is $100,000. Now, if $100,000, if you don't think that that is realistic for your organization, you do not have to request the $100,000. You can determine perhaps a lower amount, and that really is at your discretion, but you can request up to $100,000. And then again, in regards to, really want to address the fact that this is about raising new matching funds, and new matching funds don't necessarily have to be from new funders. Again, we really want you to leverage your existing relationships, past relationships with either foundations, individual donors, to really maximize this grant award. So they do not need to be new. Just the funding needs to be new. Okay. So in regards to the technical assistance, as I mentioned, we really want to see all of the selected grantees maximize the grant award. And so in that regard, we want to, we will be providing technical assistance to the grantees, and it'll be around fundraising and development. So it's really on helping you reach your fundraising goals that you've outlined in your fundraising work plan. And the TA, who will actually get the TA, it'll really be something that we determine based on each organization's assessment, as well as our own assessment of who would really benefit from the technical assistance. Some organizations, their fundraising capacity may be at a higher level than other grantees that are participating, so we just want to ensure that all organizations are in a position for them to maximize the grant award. Okay, so in regards, okay, so I have a couple of questions in regards to reporting, and one is, will we be required to report on prioritized pathway? Are there measurable outcomes? Now, since this is a challenge grant, the measurable outcome that we're seeking is that you're actually able to, that you raise the maximum grant award. That is the true measure that we're looking at. Again, as part of your reporting requirements, we will be asking not only for proof of documentation in regards to the to assess the eligibility of the new matching of the funds you've raised, but also there will be a report attached, and part of that will be to demonstrate how those funds will support your early childhood strategy. Also, some of you are asking for access to an online copy of the prioritized pathway. So all of the documents that I've either discussed or actually that we had screenshots during our PowerPoint, they are all available if you visit our familiesandschools.org website. And like I said, you can go ahead and scroll down to the bottom. There is a button that you can click on that says Grant Opportunities, and just go to the one that says Challenge Grants, and you'll find all of the documents there. Okay. Another question in regards to reporting: if you match all of the money in the first quarter, do you still need to report? Most definitely. We definitely want to know how these funds. We still want to know how these funds will be used. So a report will still be needed. Okay, so here's another question about matching funds, and it says, do we need to raise the total $100,000 to draw down money? Can we draw down money if we only raise $90,000? So again, you will have opportunities to raise money throughout on a quarterly basis throughout the 24 months. So if you only get one, perhaps in this example, these $90,000, if you get a donor that gives you $90,000, then that's exactly what you would be able to draw down. Now, if this is before your 24 months, before the 24 months are over, and you're able to find another donor or perhaps a grant that comes in for $5,000 or $7,000, and it aligns with your 0 to 5 early childhood strategy, you would go ahead and be able to draw down on those funds as well. Now, ideally, we want all the organizations to really maximize the grant award, but it's not required, so you'll actually be able to draw down money as you raise it. You don't have to wait until you reach the maximum grant award. So the other question in regards to matching is, how will you measure if it is new money? So again, if you go and read through the RFP, we detail the repayment terms and some of the documentation. Now, if there are every type of source, every type of new funding source will require a different kind of documentation. And once you're a grantee, we can go ahead and solidify what would actually be an acceptable form of documentation. So part of it would be an award letter, your financial statement. So it will really vary depending on what kind of new matching fund it is. Yeah. And again, those funds just need to be raised after January 1st or on or after January 1st. Now, there is a question here about collaboration, and I'll extend it to partnerships. Do you recommend submitting a joint proposal? Honestly, I do not, mostly because the Challenge Grants program really is a unique opportunity for singular organizations to strengthen their sustainability. So I think unless you can demonstrate or you feel confident about how this would strengthen both organizations, you know, that would be something to consider. But I would recommend that a singular organization apply for this grant. Okay, so for example, so just some clarification around capital improvements. So what can be used for capital improvements? So for example, improvements, perhaps improvements on a space, on a physical space, perhaps equipment, but it cannot be used to perhaps build a building, right? Okay. And again, going back to the selection process, when we say that a diversity of organizations, we anticipate selecting a range of organizations. We do mean according to budget size. And we mean so organizations, what we're saying, organizations that are small, medium, and large. And what we're using as our parameters are organizations under $2 million, from $2 to $10 million, and $10 million or more. So we are looking to have a range of organizations according to their size. In regards to the criteria, one of the questions is, does the agency need to have a history of serving children in the prenatal stage through age 5? And the answer is no. But again, you should be able to demonstrate that your organization has a strategic priority with this population in LA County. Questions about the PowerPoint used today. Can you download it? Yes. If you registered for the webinar, it was actually emailed to everyone that registered, so you actually have access to it as of now. But it will also be available on our website if you want to go ahead and perhaps pass it along to other colleagues. Please do so. We did get a question if we could get a list of interested grant applicants. I'm not too sure how we would. Yeah, I think I would first need to follow up with actual organizations to find out if this is something that they would want to share. We do envision that this webinar is really a preliminary stage in determining whether organizations see this funding opportunity as a good fit with their organization. So given that, I think it might be even too early yet to assess what organizations are really ready to apply for this grant opportunity. Yeah, but we're more than happy to check. And then again, if you do have a login from the Social Enterprise Grants Program, please go ahead and use the same username to access the Challenge Grants application. And yes, you will be able to access a recording of the webinar beginning July 27th. Okay. Okay. So, yeah. And again, this opportunity is intended for communities throughout LA County. There are no priority points given for any specific communities. Again, as long as organizations meet the eligibility criteria, that'll be one of the measures that we use in addition to the other ones reviewed during the selection process, which include the proposal assessments and in addition to the site visits or the interviews for the highest ranking applicants. Yeah. And also I just kind of, so I think I'm going to go ahead and stop with the questions at this point. And what I'll do is some of the questions that have been coming through are very specific to each organization. So what I would rather do is just encourage you to follow up with a call directly to my line, 213-201-3904. If I don't answer, please go ahead and leave a message, and I will be sure to give you a call as soon as possible. You can also email me, and I'll make sure to either follow up via email or via phone. Okay. Again, I really want to thank you for your time. And all of us here today, on behalf of Deborah and Fatima, we look forward to working with you and helping you through the application process. Again, the deadline is August 31st, 2012, by 5 o'clock. And again, I encourage you to call us with any questions. Thank you so much.